When she sent me that song and I saw the title, it was like, Get the Hell Out. I was like, because that's how it sounded at first. Get the hell out, not get the hell out. Get the hell out. I loved it as soon as I heard it. It was just great. And the very last lyrics in her song are Bring It On. And the title of my talk is Global 2 Center. Bring it on. Don't you love that? Don't you love that? We went through a few different slides for this. She sent me the first one. I was like, ooh, that's angry. The dog behind the little puppy was angry. So she lightened it up and sweetened the eyes. Because it wasn't about getting angry. It was about bring on the bigger version of me. Bring on the most exciting, powerful. Doesn't that little puppy growing into that, doesn't it just make you realize you can just be anything you want to be? Or not, whatever. That's how I feel when I look at it. So, I love your song, Margaret. I really do. And it goes perfectly in alignment with what Eric and I were talking about, which is the idea that I do got to get the hell out. I have to get the stuff out of my mind that is not serving me. I have to get rid of the conversations that lead me down a path that take me somewhere I don't want to be. I don't want to live. I have to recognize them early. I have to be willing to understand that when this starts, I can feel where it's going and make a decision. I got to get the hell out of here and keep it where it's. Now, I can stay there, but then I'd better be willing to take the hell out of my head and put heaven in as I navigate this road. But way too often, we are dragged into the conversation. We're dragged into the communication. We're dragged into the energy of whatever's going on around us, and we're not being the beacon of light that we're here to be. And yet, our theme this month is love only. And our job is to tap into that. And someone sent me a story this week, and I'm going to read it for you. I'm just going to read you the story, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. His name was Fleming, and he was a poor Scottish farmer. One day, while trying to make a living for his family, he heard a cry for help coming from a nearby bog, and a bog is like quicksand in Scotland. He dropped his tools and ran to the bog. There, mired to his waist in black muck, was a terrified boy, screaming and struggling to free himself. Well, Farmer Fleming saved the lad from what could have been a very slow and terrifying death. The next day, a fancy carriage pulled up to the Scotsman's sparse surroundings. An elegantly dressed nobleman stepped out and introduced himself as the father of the boy that Farmer Fleming had saved. And he said to him, "I want to repay you," said the nobleman. "You saved my son's life." "No, I can't accept payment for what I did," the Scottish farmer replied, just waving off the offer. Now at that moment, the farmer's own son came to the door of the family hovel. "Is that your son?" the nobleman asked. "Yes," the farmer proudly replied. "I'll make you a deal. Let me provide him with the level of education my own son will enjoy. If the lad is anything like his father, he'll no doubt grow to be a man we both will be proud of." And then he did just that. Farmer Fleming's son attended the very best schools and in time graduated from St. Mary's Hospital Medical School in London. And he went on to become known throughout the world as the noted Sir Alexander Fleming, the discoverer of penicillin. This gets me every time. Years, and it's not even done, years afterward, the same nobleman's son, who was saved from the bog, was stricken with pneumonia. What saved his life this time? Penicillin. The name of the nobleman? Lord Randolph Churchill. His son's name? Sir Winston Churchill. Isn't that an amazing story? I know. I read it and I was just like, here's the thing. You will never know when something you do or say, some kindness, some act of generosity, you will never know what that will do in this world. You will never know how in 1 second you can change someone's life. how in one moment you can literally turn the tides and create something so amazing that you may never know you even did. That's what love only is all about. That's why it is so important to realize that the way you use your mind, the things you do, the way you speak, the way you treat one another, the choices you make, have astounding effects on this world we live in. We will never know. I think about my daughter going with me to Guatemala. And I remember one day when I was just like sitting off to the, very tired, sitting off, and it was during a break and I was kind of by myself. And I looked over and she was still sitting in the middle of this dirt, disgusting road, sitting in this dirt with like 10 kids hanging all over her. And she was singing to them. I will never know what those 10 children benefit, how they benefited, or where that's going to change their lives. You're just never going to know. So that story for me says it is imperative that I spend some time reminding myself to love only. Now, the truth is, and one of the things in this story, his action that he did was kind of a reaction. I don't think there's anyone listening to me today, myself included, who wouldn't do the same thing if we saw somebody in need. And that's an enormous situation, an enormous case. And to think that that boy who was saved discovered penicillin, and to think that the boy who was saved ended up becoming Winston Churchill. I mean, that's enormous. That's a big story, which is why it's so profoundly moving to me. But what have you done? And what has happened in our world because of you? What have you brought forward? What are you bringing forward now? What are you willing to, as Eric said, choose to spend your mind on, as opposed to just allowing it to go willy-nilly? The title of my talk is Bring It On. But here's the thing. I don't believe that this farmer went about to change the world in that moment. He wasn't trying to change the world. He was just being himself. And I think, I've thought about this week. I am less interested in focusing my energy and my time on changing the world. I'm interested in changing myself back to who I always was. And I think if the entire universe spent the time, if every one of us listening here stopped trying to change everybody else, stopped trying to fix the world, stopped trying to change someone's opinion, and just were clear about our own, speak our truth, of course, but stop trying to make a big difference in the world, but actually make a difference in the world. And you don't have to know what that difference is. You don't have to know. You just have to be willing to love only and trust and know. When I say life is unfolding perfectly, it's unfolding from the love. So this story really moved me, as you can tell. So the changing the world or changing ourselves. Ernest Holmes says this: the great mystics taught that man should have no burdens and would have none if he turned to the one. The great mystics taught that man should have no burdens and would have none if he or she would turn to the one. Now, you can look at that and think in a religious way. It's saying you will have no burdens if you hand them all over to God. But that's not how I understand it. Because the one is not some version of God that we all agree to. The one is this understanding that we are one. Every single one of us. I'm right there in that bog, in that mud. I'm right there in the farmer that pulls him out. I am right there in the son that goes off and discovers penicillin. And I'm right there in the son who years later changes the trajectory of countries. I'm in all of it. Turn to the one. So the great mystics teach this, that we would have no burdens. if we just turn to the one. But you know what the one is? It is that energetic vibration of love, because that's all there is. There is not God and man. And I will say that to my dying day, that will be my ministry. To get rid of this dualistic understanding of God and man, church and congregation. There is not. There is just love. Love only. A vibration of love. That's who you are. It's what you are. When Eric stood up here and he started to treat, prior to that, I'd asked him to come up here and treat. So his mind was working for those 5 minutes, as he said. But the minute he stood his ground and started speaking, here's what I know. I know that there is only one vibration, and it's called love. It's what I am. It's who I am. Now I'm accepting myself, and the vibration in me matches that high vibration, and it moves forward. That's what these mystics are talking about. Turn to love only, and you will not have all of this baggage, all of these troubles. And if anything does arise, and you stay in love only, life changes. It shifts. I remember when I was going through my own cancer saga, and it was not fun. I mean, I don't ever want to go through it again. No one wants to go through that. And yet, I can tell you, looking back on it, there was such solitude, there was a depth of understanding that I had never had, probably because I was at the depth of understanding pain and the drama my life was going through. But there was something there that taught me, that moved me, changed my ministry, and took me in a very different direction. If it's there on the bathroom floor next to the toilet, having thrown up everything I could possibly throw up, and then walk into a church an hour later and give a talk called When It All Comes Up, which is what I did, then it's everywhere. It's got to be. It's got to be everywhere. Love only. That's all there is. But we have to decide that's what we're going to do. We have to make the right choice. So, I was at dinner recently, and a question was posed. I'm going to pose it to all of you. I don't need your answers. Please don't write me back with your answers. But here's the question. You're in Costco, and you buy a big, big basket full of things, right? That's what most of us do in Costco. And you're pushing it out, and all of a sudden you're looking at your bill and you realize that there's like $100 thing there that they didn't charge you for. And you're about to exit. My question to you is, do you go back and pay for it? Or do you wait to see if the woman who can't possibly have looked at all of your things gives you a check and you can leave? Now, I want you to answer that for yourself honestly. Do you get away with it? Do you go out? Or do you go back and pay for the item? Good question. Answer it yourself. My answer, without missing a beat, was I go back and pay for it. Now, not because I'm this goody two-shoes or because I think, well, let's stick with goody two-shoes. Not because, I feel like it's the right thing to do, although I do feel that, but because I understand science. I understand the law. I understand how this universe works. What I put out comes back. So if I put out, oh, I'm going to take this. Let's see if I get caught. Well, something's coming back to me to take from me to see if they can get away with it. And I don't mean people, who knows what. So there's the question. Do we live by love only? Do we live by, and I know for any of you who are sitting there right now going, of course I'd just go. I have no judgment towards you. Kind of. I really don't. I don't have any judgment towards you. But it's something to think about. And it's not just on that level. It's on every level. Can you say, I'm sorry? Can you recognize when you're wrong and then admit it? Can you be so loving that you will always, always stand in the truth of who you are and be there for that person? I loved what Eric said about Helen Street, who I adored. I loved listening to her tapes. Can you just be willing to be the funnel for love to pour in and pour out? So I have a Roomie quote. One of our members, Pat, sent it to me. And when I got the Roomie quote, I knew I would read it for you today. And it's this, because I hadn't read this before. He says, you may seem to be the microcosm. In fact, you are the macrocosm. So that's Roomie saying you are God. The branch might seem like the fruit's origin. In fact, the branch exists because of the fruit. Would the gardener have planted the tree at all without a desire and hope for fruit? That's why the tree is really born from the fruit, even if it seems the fruit is created by the tree. The idea, which comes first, comes last in realization. The idea, which comes first, comes last in realization. So this is Roomie saying to you, saying to me, your thoughts are already completed in the mind of experience. What you do, how you behave, what you think, all of that is already realized in your life. So the thought that we need to bring on only those loving thoughts, to bring on the highest level of consciousness to ourselves, it's not just because it's the right thing to do. It's because you want to live a prosperous, magnificent, passionate, creative life. And if you focus on those things, that's what you live. If you focus on fear, on doubt, or uncertainty, if you focus on the events of the world from a reactionary standpoint, acting as if all of that has power in your life, then guess what? It does. All of this has power in your life to the degree that you give it. Because what you are doing is reacting to this and creating it again. And now it's the new tree that you are planting. And I guarantee you, the fruit is not going to be fruit that you want to eat. So the question I have for you today is this. What ideas are you realizing into experience? Your mind is a plethora of ideas. Your mind is a plethora of thoughts. You know what I teach. Your thoughts come from your beliefs. And your beliefs come from something you've agreed to. So on this beautiful Sunday, I ask you to really look and ask yourself, what ideas am I willing to bring forward as the fruits of my life? And whether you know it or not, believe it or not, the ideas you have right now are already creating the type of tree that's growing in your garden and the type of fruit that's going to show up on that limb. But principles not being bound by precedent gives me the opportunity to change my ideas, change my thoughts, change my thinking. Change my thinking, change my life. That's how it goes. But you can't change your thinking and change your life without changing your beliefs, because you're going to think based on your beliefs. So, what ideas are you realizing into your experience? And here's the final point to that. When you look at your mind and you look at the way you've been using it, are you coming from love or are you coming from fear? Are you coming from creativity? Or are you coming from a part of your mind that is so fearful that it is literally decomposing the good in your life? Where are you coming from? When we say bring it on, often people say bring it on like, go ahead, try it, see what you can get, see how far you can get with me. I don't mean that one. I mean, bring it on. Bring the cavalcade, bring the Niagara Falls of love into my being. You know, as Margaret sang in her song, you know, bring on the heavens and get the hell out of here. But bring it on. Be willing to stand in love only. If I had $1 for every person that has shared with me how scared they are about this election coming up, I'd probably have about $100. But, not a lot of money. But, there's a lot of fear going on. And if you choose to spend the next so many days fearful about what might happen, then that's what you're creating. That's what you are realizing. Those are the ideas that you're bringing forward. I'm not saying don't speak your truth. Yes, but there's a way to speak your truth without being angry, without being upset, without being worried, without being fearful. And it all comes down to this understanding that right where I am, God is. And God is this loving energy. So, are you willing to bring on all of that love? Are you willing, when you say bring it on, to let everything that wants to know you in the most loving manner show up in your life? That's really the question today. Or are you somewhere in Scotland, stuck in a bog, feeling like you're being pulled under? Because I can guarantee you, if you do feel that way, and if you open up your heart, some well-meaning farmer is going to come along and pull you out. And then you get to live your life and do what is yours to do. So I would invite you to get out of that bog. I would invite you to clear your mind. I would invite you to stop reacting and to start acting from this wellspring of pure love, pure unconditional love, and then be willing to see what happens to your life. I guarantee you, when you fill your mind with love only, the only thing that can come back is love. You just have to be willing to open up and see it that way. Namaste.